Women who left a relationship that wasn't bad, but wasn't particularly amazing. How did that work out? I left mine after I had been feeling unhappy for a long time. There wasn't anything extremely wrong with the relationship per se, but I just didn't feel happiness. It took a lot of mental and emotional strength to be able to leave, but LD say it was worth it for me. So my ex wasn't a bad dude, just not the right person for me. I called it off after almost 4 years. Overall it was kind of awesome. My ex and I ended up talking out our breakup over the next year. We both grew up a lot, and learned a ton about ourselves and our relationship. Another year after that I met the love of my life and got married. My ex and I are still good friends and he attended our wedding and has visited us since then. Better than I could have ever dreamed. My ex-partner loved me a lot. He was kind, loved me, and had a stable life that I thought I could pair mine with for the long haul. But that was it. It was a fine relationship with a loyal partner. I thought to myself, what more could I ask for? A lot more, apparently. Long story short, I broke it off with him because realized that while he was never especially offensive, he just wasn't great. I broke up with him and ended up with my now husband. From the time I wake up to the time I fall asleep, my husband inspires and motivates me. We have a beautiful relationship, and it motivates me to do more, be better, and make sure to be as good of a partner for him as he is for me. I didn't realize that my ex was, at best, a non-controversial and inoffensive presence that I didn't mind. What I needed was a true partner, who loves, and deepens my conceptualization of love each and every day. Life is just too damn short to settle for the mundane at your core. When I asked this question then, I wish someone gave me a resounding "you need to leave." Sometimes, another person's best efforts just isn't enough. I'll feel like tease one thing if you're alone and are just holding up the status quo. But if you're dating the status quo, it's as though you staple that into place and you end up stuck. Many of my friends who settled are now still happily married. Most of my friends who, like me, sought out passion and the one are now divorced. Just my 2 cents. It was funny, we both broke up with each other at the same time. We'd been dating and in a band together and it was a particularly awkward band practice. All of a sudden, she turns around and says she doesn't think it's working out and we shouldn't date each other and it was such a relief. I told her LD just been sitting there trying to think how to say basically the same thing. We still tried to keep the band going but honestly, we were basically the same person in 2 different bodies and we annoyed the absolute shit out of each other. We don't talk anymore. So I dated this guy for a little over a year. He was a good guy and we had fun together but I felt like I wasn't doing the things I wanted when we were together. I'm really into snowboarding and climbing and he wasn't very adventurous. I ended up moving to a new city and breaking up in the process. It's been about 4 months and definitely get lonely and think about him at times booty think I made the right call. I'm single and more than happy with it. My ex and I went hot for about a year and a half, and fizzled out in the last 6 months. Some relationships just aren't meant to last, and that's okay. I'm much less anxious now that I'm single. I don't have to worry about seeing him, his badly trained dog, his sister that hates me, or say no to something because I'm busy with something else. Bad knows, I feel a lot less stressed, but not as upbeat, so it kinda evens out I guess. At the time it sucked. The guy was totally blindsided and hurt, understandably, and wanted to know what he did wrong and how he could fix it but I didn't have answers for him. I felt like an absolute monster. But after it was over I felt relieved. I went on to meet and marry a man who I'm so much more compatible with and I would never have found him if I didn't rip off that band-aid. It worked out great. I realized that my high school sweetheart and I were growing to be different people with different priorities and values. We loved each other very much but both realized that if we got married we'd be one of the couples that grew to resent each other. It opened me up to find someone who shares my desired direction in life with an amazing family who has made me feel more whole than I knew I could. Communication hadn't been great and we had stopped having real conversations. I wasn't happy, and put a lot of pressure on my end while he never saw his part in this. He stopped trying to initiate conversations and anytime I did, he never really took to them. Eventually I couldn't stand the pressure I put on myself despite my continued effort and the lack of effort on his part. We had so much fun together when doing activities, but during the downtimes, the lack of initiation in terms of conversation, sex, support, and my interests caused me to end things. It's been really tough, since I loved him a bunch, and appreciated his other qualities, but I know it's for the best. We just don't speak each other's love language. It was honestly such a relief. He was a really sweet person and a good partner too, but I could tell that we just weren't one another's perfect match. I felt so much guilt with every day that went by and we were still together. If I could imagine that I could have a relationship with someone who was a better complement, why would I waste both of our times on something that wasn't going to satisfy either of us in the long run? This was 3 years ago. He's been freed up to date a girl who he really seems to get along with, and while I haven't found my perfect match, I'm learning so much from every new relationship, even the ones that don't work out. It worked out perfect because I ended up, 2.5 years later, meeting an incredible man who is all I could ever ask for in a partner. He truly is my other half. The man I left wasn't bad to me, but I just wasn't happy. And that left me feeling lonely. This is an answer to everyone saying leaving him/her was the best I did, because then, I realized how free or how better I felt without him/her, if that partner was indeed not a bad person, and did nothing wrong to you. Sometimes, people tend to confuse being personally unhappy with you make me unhappy. I feel like, sometimes, people throw the burden on their partner's back as if he/she was the reason you're unhappy, but it's not true. Sometimes, you're with a great person, but you're personally living in a hole of darkness, and you can't be happy because of your actions/choices/whatever, and that reflects on your relationship, because you start to mislead yourself by thinking he/she needs to make me happy. So, the result is, you break up the relationship, leaving everything behind you, thinking you did right, and feel the relief fully inside of your body, but then, months/years later, the burden comes back, and you have no back left close to you to put it on. That's where people need to work on themselves before trying to build things with someone else, because if you think about it, if that partner loved you more than he could love anybody else and did nothing wrong to you/was a good partner, he might be suffering from that breakup only because you didn't know yourself and you didn't realize you were the only reason for being unhappy. Be happy first, then find someone that boosts that happiness. Don't expect people to magically make you unhappy to very happy. That's a fantasy dream that you'll see only in Disneyland. It was a drawn-out 4-year breakup. Not awful, we just had zero passion for each other. Oh, and it was clear he had never gotten over an ex. Finally found an apartment 30 miles away and moved my stuff out for good. 2 weeks later, he shows up on my doorstep at midnight. Scared the shit out of my new roommate. He had the ring, a 2-carat round diamond set in a band covered with small diamonds. Let him sleep there overnight, with the roommate's permission, and sent him home, with the ring, first thing in the morning. About a month later I met the man I would marry. That was 13 years ago and I'm so grateful I found the love of my life. Amazingly. He is still single, but I went on to find the love of my life. We've been together for 8 years and married for 2 years, February will be 3. It was a tough breakup because I loved that guy, but after 3 years him about to propose I felt stuck and anxious. I realized I had to call it off immediately before he proposed. I've said yes and be divorced now. Always. I mean always listen to your intuition. Everyone told Mel was crazy and we would get back together, but once I broke up with him I felt so light and free. He wasn't controlling or mean. Well, years later I can now see he was emotionally and sexually manipulative and prolonged my eating disorder, but I am so happy I broke up with him. I'm feeling this right now. We are trying to work it out right now, but I am just not happy and feel alone a lot. We both are in agreement of where we are at. But to be honest, we are the same person, but our habits are extremely different. We do have 2 little ones together, but we both don't want to stay just for them. Our relationship is very stressful. Just seems we are growing apart. I have been on a journey to find that love for myself. I'm learning what I want. I want to be happy and feel connected. But I also want to have a relationship with me. This gives me hope that I don't have to settle. I don't know, been 3 days, ask me in a month. Once you're out, there is so much freedom. It's unexpected when things aren't that bad. Phenomenally. We had a baby boy together and tried to make it work the best we could. 5 months later we split. Our life's goals and focuses weren't aligned in the least and it became overwhelmingly frustrating. I always tell people he wasn't a bad guy, he just wasn't the guy for me. 7 years and some bumpy roads later couldn't have asked for a better co-parent. His now wife has become one of my best friends in the world and we all put in a conscious effort to support one another. It's pretty amazing what people can do when they remain communicative and mature. I realized afterwards that it was much worse than initially thought. He wasn't abusive, unkind, critical, or temperamental. He was smart and loved kids and animals. My parents liked him. There was just no spark. Now that I'm married to someone with spark, I look back and can't fathom spending my life with him. Leave, because I promise you'll find better. I was left with a lot of guilt at first for leaving someone who was a nice guy and never really did anything wrong. However, me and my current BF are so much better for each other, so I'm so glad I did. It took me a couple years in between to find him, but I'm glad I waited. I was with a guy for almost 5 years, and started feeling iffy about the relationship by the 2-year mark, but stayed because we had a huge friend base together and everyone told me what a good guy they thought he was. Eventually couldn't lie to myself anymore and say that I was happy. It wasn't because he was a particularly bad guy, I just wasn't in love with him, he just wasn't for me. Ended up finding a guy afterwards that I adore, and 4 years in, I still adore. I've never once had to ask myself if I am in love with him like I had to with my ex, I just am. You have to listen to your gut, because there will be a million mental and emotional reasons to not leave a relationship if you're unhappy, but your gut will never lie to you.